Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar-Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Okay, welcome back, friends. Today I have Ann Carden with us. We are going to talk about her long journey through entrepreneurship, through helping her own businesses grow and then other people's businesses grow, her coaching and consulting, and her books that she's written. Ann, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lauren. It's so great to be here with you. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Oh, me too. Can you give us a little overview, a little amuse-bouche of your entrepreneurial journey before we dive in deeper?
Sure. So I've been at this for about 33 years. I built 5 previous businesses and sold them, started them from nothing. And today I own 2. I have my coaching and consulting business, and then I also have my Expert in You brand marketing and media agency as well. So those are my 2 that I run today.
Busy. And and tell us a little bit about the 2 you have today.
Yeah. So my Expert in You. I'm a strategic business growth consultant and coach, and I work mainly with professional entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, experts who are really wanting to grow a premium business. So they're wanting a simpler model. They want to work with top tier clients, and they want to have a business that my pitch is having 40K to 150K plus clients, months, and paydays.
Okay. All right.
In a nutshell, that's kind of it. But helping them scale or helping experts really create a revenue business. If they're coming maybe from a career or some sort of background where now they want to start their own business and they've got all of this expertise that they've developed, and I help them turn that into something that can be really lucrative and influential and impactful. So I work kind of scale or startup.
Okay, got it. And then the media and marketing business?
Yeah. So the Expert in You media marketing. So I'm building up that side of the business. It's not really new. I've been doing it a couple of years. So I have my podcast. We will help people launch a podcast, build an influential brand, write their book. Just launched my magazine, my Expert in You magazine. We're getting ready to do the 2nd edition. And part of the reason why I did that was to give my clients a platform, a media platform, as I'm helping them build influential brands. And so building up that side with sponsorships and, just kind of monetizing that whole end of my business. So we're in the process of building that out.
I was about to say, those sound like they go well together.
Yeah. And we'll help people launch their podcasts. So, build up their brand on social media, all of the pieces. So I have a team in place that will do a lot of the done for you for people as well. But it's all around really attraction marketing and media.
Cool. Very cool. So first official question, Ann, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
Well, I've learned to be more patient through the years. That being said, I am a go-getter. So when I get an idea, I run with it. I don't sit with things for very long. I'm a jump in, start doing it. And then, kind of like they say, jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down. I am a bit like that, although I've learned through the years that to leverage other people and to really build on other people's expertise and leverage other people's expertise and not try to do everything myself and figure it all out. But yes, to your point, I am, because I think we're just kind of wired that way.
Right. Well, and to have such a track record too. What was your first business?
Oh gosh, well, this will probably sound crazy to people, but 33 years ago, we were in financial hardship because I left a 13-year corporate career to be a stay-at-home mom. We made a move. And I left that income, that career behind, and we were struggling financially. So I sat down and cried because my 4-year-old son needed shoes and we didn't have the money. And I said, what can I do? And I started praying for an answer. And I've always been very crafty and very creative. And the craft industry was kind of exploding. This was way back when, probably way before your time, Lauren. You're probably my kids' age.
I was
around. And the craft industry was exploding. And I thought, okay, there's a little store and I'm going to see if I can make some things and maybe just make some extra money for my family, just help my family out. And long story short, that turned into a full-blown creative doll business. I
Oh,
designed
wow.
my own dolls. I shipped all over the world.
Whoa.
I employed many other stay-at-home moms. I ran that business for 7 years. I designed my own patterns and sold patterns. So that was a whole nother revenue stream. And
Mhm.
yeah, so built this international doll
Mhm.
business. And you did that for many, many years until the market kind of changed. And then
Mhm.
I made the decision to sell. I sold all of my designs and got out of that business and moved
Mhm.
on to the next thing. So,
Okay. Well, give
yeah.
us a little, take us on the stepping stones a
Okay,
little
I'll
bit.
take you on the journey. So,
I can't help it. I'm just so
yeah.
curious.
Yeah. So the first one, I was basically running a manufacturing company out of my home. And I was
Mm,
also in stores across the country. And then I sold out of it an international magazine as
mm.
well.
Okay.
And but in the process, I gained 50 pounds. And
Mm,
so I was in the worst shape of my life ever.
mhm,
And I said, okay, I don't know what my next thing is going to be, but I really kind of had a crossroads. My kids were in school by now, and I was doing things with them, but I didn't know what my next thing was going to be.
mhm,
And I thought the only thing I have control over here is to take better care of myself, lose
mhm,
this weight, eat better. So I started doing that, and I got in the best shape of my life. And I started looking around, and that was before gyms were like on every
mm,
corner, and it just wasn't a thing.
mhm.
Again, aging myself, going way back. And I thought, you know what? And I felt so good, and I felt so empowered as a woman. And because I kind of went from almost this depressed state, like, okay, this business now, I don't have it anymore.
Mhm,
It's been kind of
mhm,
my identity. And now what do I do? And I looked around, and I just felt so amazing with all, just changing who I was
mhm,
and really getting in that shape, getting in the shape that I was. And I learned a lot along the way. And I thought, I want to do this. I want to help other women. And there
mhm,
was really not much around. And
mhm,
so I started teaching fitness classes at a community hall
mhm.
in a very small town, a village of 98 people, if you can imagine this. So, very small town.
Yeah.
And I went to a back to school barbecue and handed out flyers to the moms. And I said, hey, do you want to take fitness classes with me? At that time, we called it aerobics. That's
Mhm,
really
uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
dating me.
Yep.
And yeah, they started doing it, and they started paying me. And that continued to grow and grow and grow until it was a 16,000 square foot health club
Oh my God.
within it, and then I added, and then so I built another high end women's training center, and then I built 2 weight loss centers. So I sold all of
Mhm,
those when I got into coaching and decided, you know what, I've learned a lot, I've done a lot, I've had a
mhm,
lot of success in business.
mhm,
And I worked with a business coach in my last 2 businesses, and it was so impactful. And at that time, they
mhm,
weren't on every corner. I didn't even know one before her. I didn't even know what she could do for me, but
mhm,
I
mhm,
thought, okay, I'll see how you can help me here.
mhm,
And it was so impactful. I thought, this is my next thing. And
mhm,
I've always coached, I mean, I've coached thousands of people through the years, whether it
mhm,
was in fitness or
mhm,
nutrition or whatever. So it was a really natural fit for me.
mhm,
And I talked to a couple of people that I knew from networking from my other businesses, a couple of business owners. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, but I want to see
mhm,
if I know how. Like, I want to see
mhm,
if my skills and everything I've learned will transfer to
mhm.
you. And my first 2 clients blew it out of the water. And I said, I know what I'm doing. And,
Mhm,
but I continue to grow, and I'm always looking for new things. Like, I've never quit learning, and I continue to do that and stay very on top of my game and cutting edge. And I've always done that in all of my businesses. So that is how I got
mhm.
into this.
I love it. And thinking about 33 years ago and what time period we were in and
Oh
what
my
business looked
gosh.
like and, pre-internet.
No internet. Yes. I look at the opportunities today. It still blows my mind
Mhm,
that I
mhm,
can travel anywhere I want to go, and
mhm.
I can run my business from anywhere. And
Right. Mhm,
and just the opportunities, like, if I would have had this
mhm,
33 years ago, I can't even imagine. I mean,
mhm,
when I think about even the advertising I had to do in that first business with
mhm,
print advertising, and I've talked about this before, I'd pay $1,500 for a magazine ad
mhm,
for that doll business, and I would have to wait almost 2 more issues. I would have to pay for 2 more issues
mhm.
before I would even know if that issue was going to
Yep.
work. Like, if
Yep.
that doll was even going to go, because
Mhm,
everything was done so far ahead, right? Because
mhm,
they had to go to print and all of that. And so I would put thousands of dollars into advertising before I would even know if it was going to work. I
Right.
mean, the fact that we don't have to do any of that today is insane. I mean, it's
Yeah.
insane. Like we can put it up on Facebook and go, hey, what do you think about this? And people
Right.
could go yes or no, or you can reach right out to people and ask them, hey, what do you think about this? And
Hmm.
it's a crazy world.
Well, and also being a woman in business too. I mean, I realized 33 years ago, it wasn't, my daughter asked me if I had been a pioneer the other day. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
No. But what was that like as you're like, oh, I'm going to help my family. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you have this multinational, business. I mean, obviously it wasn't overnight, I don't think,
Mhm.
but, what did that do for your family? What was that like being a business owner, in that
Oh
time?
gosh. It changed our life. I mean, it literally did change our lives. God really blessed it. And it was so impactful. Even when I think back, like my kids looked at it and they would say, oh, mom's doing that again. Like
Hmm.
mom's, working or whatever. But when I just look at all of that, I think, gosh, there when I think back to women starting businesses, there wasn't a lot of it. I mean, there were certain things that we could do, like you could have a babysitting business, or
Hmm.
you could have a craft business, and so there
Hmm.
were certain types of businesses that women were in.
Hmm.
But now the opportunities are, I mean, it's unbelievable how much things have changed in 33 years. But
Hmm.
even when I started my fitness business, um, the women weren't starting businesses like that. It was men that were
Hmm.
owning gyms and health clubs and
Hmm.
doing things like that. So I always really kind of have been a trailblazer like that. But
Hmm.
the interesting thing is, Lauren, I never really thought about that back
Hmm.
then. Like
Hmm.
you're asking that question, but I never
Yeah.
gave that any thought. It's like, okay, what do
Hmm.
I do? I
Yeah.
need to
I've
do
got a
something
problem I'm going
here.
to solve. We're
Exactly,
problem
exactly.
solvers.
Yeah,
Problem
yes,
solvers. Yeah. It's like
yes.
I have, people start businesses for personal need, or like I see a need in the marketplace, or just or
Hmm.
desire too. But you're like,
Yeah,
my kid needs some shoes. I got to figure this out.
yeah.
And then when you sold those businesses, were you just itching for the next thing? Did you feel like you had taken it as far as you could? Like,
Mm.
what were the inflection points there?
That's a really interesting question. The first one, the market was changing and I
Hmm.
saw it changing, which is why I went into the pattern end of it.
Hmm.
Because we were getting a lot of imports, like everything. It's so funny now we're talking about tariffs and
Yeah.
and and everything, all the imports coming in. But back then, people were now starting to manufacture craft items in
Hmm.
China, like they
Hmm.
saw it take off across the United States. So next thing we know, the WalMarts and all these businesses are bringing in these craft items. I mean,
Hmm.
we're still seeing it today. We still can go buy all those things today, but they're all
Hmm.
imported, right? And
Hmm.
so it got to the point where I couldn't even make the handmade goods. I couldn't even buy the materials to
Mm.
make things as cheap as people could buy the whole thing,
Mm.
and much less pay rent in stores and
Hmm.
ship everywhere. So I
Hmm.
saw the market changing, and I thought, okay, I'm going to design the patterns where people can buy the patterns and they can make their own.
Hmm.
So that was very lucrative as well. I did really well in that space
Hmm.
too. But that was sort of my, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I see that I can go this direction, but I didn't love that piece of it, quite honestly. It
Hmm.
just felt very repetitious. And
Hmm.
and other
Hmm.
than once I got the design done, then it was like just the fulfillment of the
Yeah.
patterns, which
Hmm.
was super boring. Yeah, it was very boring. And so I knew that I was kind of on the back end of that business, and I wasn't really thinking about or looking for the next thing. But when I decided to sell out and do the designs, it was more like, I'm just kind of done with this. Like, I'm not loving it anymore. So
Hmm.
that was sort of, I'm over it.
Hmm.
When I sold the first health club and weight loss center that I had started two more. So
Hmm.
this was actually during the recession. I expanded and I opened
Okay.
two more.
Hmm.
That's a whole long story. And and then I was, because the other two were new and weren't built up yet,
Mhm.
and they were in a completely different area, an hour away.
Mhm.
I was running myself ragged. It
Mm,
was like
mhm.
I had built up these two. They were really running themselves. I had really great people in there, but I still had to have my hands in it. I still had to be there. I couldn't just completely, take my hands off of it.
Mhm.
And so I was running myself ragged between the two businesses, driving back and forth. And it was just exhausting. And it came to a point where my husband said, something's got to give here. You
Mhm.
cannot continue on this path. Well, by then my kids are out of the house and all of
Mhm.
that. But he was right. I was so burned out and just, okay, I don't know what to do here. So I started thinking, I think I'm going to sell these other two businesses and let go of those. My passion had kind of turned from, I really love the women's high end training center
Mhm. Mhm.
and the weight loss, which was kind of funny because that was actually really how I had started,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
not at that level. And
Right.
so I thought, this is kind of where my passion is now. I'm kind of over having the big 16,000 square foot health club. And,
Mhm.
we had a spa and an indoor track and daycare, and we
Mm.
had all these things. I was kind of over that model. And the whole boot camp style was really
Mhm.
coming onto the scene. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to build this high end training center, run these high end boot camps, and then have the weight loss center as well.
Mhm.
And so my passion, my heart kind of really changed. So I knew it was time to sell those two. I wish I would have sold them a couple of years earlier when
Mm.
I would have probably got even double. I mean, I
Mhm.
made really good money on those sales,
Right. Mhm.
but I probably could have doubled what I sold those businesses for because I didn't sell them in their peak. I
Mm.
actually I sold them as we were going into a recession, which
Mm.
was, well, we were coming out of a recession, I should say, when I
Mhm.
sold those. Wrong time to sell. So I really learned something through that.
Mhm.
However, it still helped us. It changed our lives.
Sure.
So I had those other two businesses and I was really passionate about that. But it kind of was still fitness. It was still the same thing. And I think, I was in that 20 years and I think I was
Mhm.
just ready for something very different. And it was working with that business coach that opened my mind
Mhm.
to coaching was kind of starting to come onto the scene.
Mhm.
A lot of people didn't know, about business coaches at that time. I remember I used to have to explain to people what a business
Mhm.
coach was. I didn't even really know myself, but it really opened up my mind to be able to leverage all of my expertise and all the years of experience I had built up. Because as I started talking to business owners, I realized most of them hadn't built multiple businesses,
Mhm.
gone through
Mhm.
sales,
Mhm.
all of that. And I realized I had acquired a lot of knowledge and skills and expertise that they didn't have.
Mhm.
And so I really saw the opportunity to make an impact to people in a different way. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, building businesses and selling them, like it's changed our lives financially. It's
Mhm.
changed. I mean, it's just made all the difference. I want to be able to do that with other people. I want to
Mhm.
help them.
Love that.
And yeah, so many businesses fail. And so,
Mhm.
my whole thing is I want to help you build wealth and influence and impact from your business
Mm.
and change lives. And that's really what it's done for me and where my heart is to help other people.
Beautiful. So that brings us to today. Is there anything in particular you're impatient about right now?
What am I impatient about right now? Yeah, I mean, I'd love to get this media side of my business like rocking and rolling even
Mhm.
faster.
Mhm.
So I would say that.
Uh-huh.
Um, you know, I'm working on some new things in my business as well that I'm getting really, antsy to kind of get them out there and get it going. And
Mhm.
so I always have things
Yeah.
going on. I mean, I'm just always, I drive my husband nuts. He's like, okay, what another thing,
What's new? Yeah.
but yeah, what's new? So I think that's part of it.
Yeah. It sounds like it's just who you are.
It is. It's just, I'm wired that way.
Exactly, exactly. And you mentioned you touched on this a little bit before, but how do you fuel yourself as a leader? Are there books that have been particularly impactful? Are you going to conferences? I know you have a
Hmm.
podcast and you're on podcasts. What have there been anything that have just been so really pivotal in kind of lining you up with who you are today, or that been
Hmm.
moving you along?
I wish I could tell you it was one thing, but it's not.
Sure,
It's
it's
literally, oh my gosh.
accumulation.
I am a student. I am such a student.
Hmm.
But, the interesting thing is, I'm a student, probably different from most people. I want to learn from multiple places. So yes, I read. I listen to books more than I read.
Hmm.
It's funny. I'll buy the audio and then I love it, and then I'll buy the the
Yeah.
written copy so I
Yeah.
can mark it up, right?
Uh-huh. Hmm.
But there are people that I follow. When you've been at this a long time, you're looking for nuggets more than you're
Hmm.
looking for whole strategies and
Sure.
things
Hmm.
like that.
Right.
So I'm always learning from different people, and I still invest in mentors and coaches and people that know things that I want to learn or don't know, or to even close a gap for
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
So I learn from multiple places, but I'm not a do-it-yourselfer kind of person, and I
Hmm.
think there's a difference there. I have learned that trying to fly by the seat of your pants or do everything yourself is not ever going to get you much success. I
Hmm.
see too many DIYers, especially in entrepreneurship, and I just want to shake them and go, that's not the fast path. Like, the fast path is to work with people that have been there and blaze that trail
Hmm.
and just speed your success. And so even though I learn from multiple places, I just, unless it's something I feel like I need to learn
Hmm.
for,
Hmm.
maybe to help my clients with or
Hmm.
something like that, then I will. But for the most part, I learn from a lot of people, and I implement through, with other people as much as I
Hmm.
can.
I'm the same way. I mean, people rely on us for services and coaching from in the PR world, and I love hiring other experts to support us. Or
Hmm.
even for things I could technically do, like messaging for us or whatever. But it's so hard to read the label from inside the bottle. It's like
A
bring,
100%.
like have someone come alongside you and pull it out of you and do it
Yeah.
is so much quicker, as
Yeah.
you said.
But it's also actually, Lauren, that's where my expert in you brand came from, though, because I couldn't find the right person to help me.
Mm,
I went down when I started my coaching business, I kind of went down a lot of rabbit holes,
hmm.
down a lot of paths, invested in the wrong things. They all helped. Don't get
Hmm.
me wrong. I think
Sure.
there's value in everything.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't say any of it was a waste of money, but I
Hmm.
couldn't find anybody that could look at my expertise, what I wanted to accomplish, what my vision was, and really encompass all of that uh, into offers and a brand, working the way I wanted to work. And I couldn't find anyone.
Hmm.
And that's what I do for people today. It's like I see people trying to sell themselves one little way or
Hmm.
one piece of what they do,
Hmm.
and they've got all of this brilliance and this expertise, or they try to learn something to build their business around. And I just see so much value being left on the table.
Hmm.
And when I work with a client and we can pull together, here's a story.
Hmm.
One of my clients was, a social media agency, and she was
Hmm.
selling her services to a client for a few $1,000s a month and
Hmm.
doing their social media. But she had all of this brilliance and expertise. And I was like, why are you not selling all of that? Like, you should be
Hmm.
an advisor. You should be advising their
Hmm.
marketing teams and all of that. And she said, that's why we started working together. Well, long story short, she went back to the client with a consulting offer that we put
Hmm.
together. She closed the client for $413,000 for a
Whoa.
1-year engagement. She had been selling them something for a few thousand. That's an
Mm,
example of what I'm talking about. She wasn't even leveraging all of the real expertise, the high
mhm,
value expertise she had. And that was the case with me.
mhm,
Everyone I was that was helping me kind of structure my business, they were having me sell one little piece of what I did.
mm,
And then
mhm.
I would send those clients on their way, and it was like a 90-day thing. And I would
Yeah.
send those clients on their way when I could help them build a
Mm,
business to, whatever level. And I didn't feel fulfilled. I thought, what is wrong here? And I
mm,
wasn't getting paid for all the years of expertise. I wasn't getting paid what I felt. I really, I felt like I was working beneath my skill set, not to
mhm.
sound arrogant or
Sure, sure,
anything,
sure.
but
Yeah, no.
but
Mhm,
I was working beneath my expertise. And so
mhm,
I just wasn't feeling fulfilled, but I couldn't find anybody to help
mhm,
me. And it took me a very long time. I mean, it took me some years to figure out how to really structure my business and what was wrong. And I had to go back. Like at one point, I said, I am either getting out of this or I'm going to figure it out because I don't like this. Like I don't care for the clients that I'm bringing on and that I'm working with. I don't feel fulfilled. I'm not making the money. I keep hitting this low 6-figure income ceiling. Like I'm done with this. And I took a step back and I thought, okay, Ann, what have you done in all of your other businesses that you're not doing in this one? And it came down to you're not premium. You're not playing in a premium market. You're trying to play in the market. Like the things that exploded my fitness businesses and the things that helped me grow and expand was when I developed premium offers. So just think about this, 20 something years ago in my fitness business, we had a $12,000 offer 20 something years ago.
Wow.
And we sold it. And that was unheard of. Like people, that would blow people's mind back then. So I always knew that. And the interesting thing is that even when I worked with other businesses, when I first started coaching businesses, I was helping them do the same thing. But I wasn't doing that in my coaching business. And that was the game changer. So that's where the Expert in You brand all came from. I'm like, I'm not taking my expertise. And then I would talk to other coaches who were not doing that either. And I would start helping them do that. And people were misaligned with what their expertise was. And so as a result, they were struggling or they weren't getting to the level that they wanted. And that sort of was the game changer for everything. But it was hard to find that person. I never did, really.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay,
that was long. I'm sorry.
No, I'm like, you got me. I'm like, tell me everything. I'm like, so switching gears a little bit, looking at your journey, was there a moment in one of your businesses where you felt like the rug just totally got pulled out from under you? You're like, oh my God, how are we going to survive this? And
I'm already laughing.
Yeah, I know. You alluded to a couple little ones, but then ultimately you're like, it puts you on the path you're supposed to be, but it turned out to be the best thing. Either it was, blessing in disguise or what have you. But what you got for us?
Yeah. So 2008, when the recession hit, my health clubs were humming along. I told you they were at their prime. They were just, everything was growing and expanding. And all of a sudden, the recession, we're starting to see the housing market and everything change. At the same time, now I was a premium club. We charged a lot of money for our services because we had a spa and we had a lot of things that the other club in town did not have. And I always looked at, okay, how can I be premium? How can I be ahead of the curve? So I had in my club, the doctors, the lawyers, the business owners, the people that had money, that, wealthy people. And, that's why we were selling services like that. Well, when the market changed though, but we also had mainstream people as well. All of a sudden everything started crashing and we had a low price competitor come in at that time, a $19 club that was unheard of, that they were just coming onto the scene. They came in, we were in a small town. And so that came in right about the time everything was shifting in the market and the housing market was crashing. So we had the economy and then we had this low end club come in and we took a huge hit. Now, at that time, I didn't have the weight loss center yet. I just had the club. And I started looking for ways. And here's the weird thing. This gym, basically, this health club, really kind of knocked me off in everything that they did. They built a whole big club. They put in a pool. Well, that was the one thing I didn't have was a pool. They put in all the stuff. They were $19 a month. It was pretty hard to compete with that.
Yeah.
They put in everything. They even down to some of my colors and like literally just practically knocked me off. So I had that. And then we also had the economy shift. So actually, that's where I put in the weight loss center. I'm like, okay, they don't offer that. And I was a nutritionist as well.
Okay.
And I came across a company that was like a franchise. It was like a licensing. And it was actually through my credit card processing or my payment processing company ran a webinar one night. And I got on this webinar, how to double your club dues. And I thought, we're in a down economy. I'm going to get on. Yeah. So got on this webinar and she talked about this weight loss program and putting this in. And I bought into it right away. Like I invested, just like a franchise. I bought it in, I brought it in, I put it in my club. And so now our fees were $99 a month for this weight loss. And it set us apart. So that took off. But when I saw the power of that, and I kind of like my heart was kind of going back to, I want to run a high-end women's club again. That was one of the reasons we expanded and opened 2 more businesses during the recession, because I thought, well, if I'm not going to make the same amount of money in these 2 businesses because of everything that's going on, I'll just expand, and my income won't go down, my revenue won't go down. Well, that was the wrong way to look at it. But at the same time, I really felt like I was being called to that. Like God's always guided my steps in my business. And so I really felt like I was being called to that. Well, at the same time, we put everything on the line to do that. I mean, everything. We took out a loan to expand. I hadn't sold those other 2 yet. So we could have lost everything in that move, but it was the best decision I could have made. And we really did have peace. Once I convinced my husband I needed to do this, well, I became a good negotiator through the years, let me tell you. Yeah. But we expanded, and, that turned out to be the best thing ever, because I thought, well, if I can make it through all of this and I can keep my head above water, I'll have 4 businesses to sell instead of 2. And that's exactly what happened.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Big swings.
Crazy.
I love it. I love your story. I love thinking about you doing this 33 years ago and following your path, and just being so bold and brave is just very inspiring for me to listen to.
It's a big piece of it.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I always say fear is like a muscle. Taking risk and fear, it's like a muscle. You don't go to the gym and, do a bicep curl and go, hey, look at my muscle.
Right.
You got to keep stepping into it, stepping through it over and over again. And, for me, I have a trust and a faith, and that's a huge piece of it. But you have to just learn that that's just part of entrepreneurship. And you have to roll with it no matter what. And you're always going to learn. But here's the thing. I've always said, when you know how to make money, when you know how to build a business, you'll never be out of work, ever. Like I made money at 7 years old. I had my first business at 7 years old.
Hold that thought, because we're about to come back to that. But I just want to say this. I love how you bet on yourself. Like you were like, I believe in myself. I'm not, obviously you have your husband and you're in that together, but you knew what you needed to do for your family and for your businesses. And you were just like, let's do this. And you just shoved all those chips to the center of the table. And I just love that.
Burn the ships.
So my next question, I'm so curious about little girl Ann.
Now that I opened that Pandora's box,
that was my next question. Honest, really. I was curious. So you had a business when you were 7?
Yeah. So I think it was about 7 or 8. And the funny thing is, Lauren, this didn't even come out until I was on a podcast. Like I had never even thought about this. And one day somebody said on a podcast, when was your first business? And, like, how old were you? And I started thinking, I thought, oh my gosh, I was 7 or 8. So my very first business, I taught craft classes. I learned how to make these paper mache, tissue paper balloons. And then you paper mache and then you pop the balloon. You have this little hanging thing, right? I learned how to make those. And so I decided I was going to teach all the kids in the neighborhood how to do that. And I don't remember what I charged them anymore, if it was a dime or a quarter or whatever it was. But I was teaching craft classes to the neighborhood kids, and I was charging them because there were expenses. I had the tissue paper and the balloons, and
you had to cover your costs.
Yes, I had to cover my costs. So I learned all that early. But the other thing is, when I started thinking about that, I thought, wow, all through my childhood, and I learned how to sell Girl Scout cookies, right? So sales was not even a big deal to me. I just learned how to do that. But I always did things that made my own money. I mean, I remember going door to door selling flower seeds and garden seeds, which is, people would be like, you sold one. I know. Christmas cards. You could order these boxes of, Christmas cards. People could get Christmas cards that were personalized, and yet they had to be ordered from a company. So I'd take these little pamphlets around and they could order their Christmas cards. So I always found ways to make money, even I babysat, I cleaned houses, I did all of that before like my real first job where I actually worked at an establishment. So I kind of just learned that. But my dad was an entrepreneur.
Okay.
He always just had his own business. Yeah. So I think I, kind of learned that without really understanding. I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was at the time, but he always did have his own business. And so I just really kind of learned that. And I guess in some weird way, I learned from him.
Yeah.
Make your own way.
They're always watching. Those children are always watching.
So true.
Was there a personality trait of yours when you were young that you either were perceived as a weakness because someone told you outright, like, I don't like this about you, or you're too this or that, the other, or you just kind of received that information, third hand or whatever. But then, now as a leader and a business owner, you realize that it was your superpower all along.
Oh my gosh, this makes me laugh. What an awesome question. I actually, it's been several years now, but I wrote a post about this. So I was always in trouble for being bossy and for talking too much. Always. And, now I consult people.
Yes.
And help them. And I speak and I have a podcast, and it always has been a superpower of mine because I've been a leader. I've always been a leader in everything. But when I was little, that leadership a lot of times was misunderstood as being bossy. Yep. And maybe the way I went about it wasn't so great.
Sure.
But yeah, it's really interesting how we can see those traits. It's kind of like a lot of times as a kid, and it wasn't really I don't think from my family as much as it was like from school. I mean, I can remember getting a spanking in the third grade because I wouldn't quit talking. Oh. So yeah. But now it's a big piece of
exactly. Now you do it. Now you do it for a living.
I do.
I've shared it on the show before, but as someone who has been called bossy a few times in her life, I'm very sensitive to that, especially like how we speak to young girls in particular when they are asserting themselves. And I have a now 10-year-old daughter, but when she was not even one yet, she was in the baby room at the daycare, and I go to pick her up and she's crying. And so I looked at her teacher. I said, well, what's going on? And she said, oh, she's just being bossy. And I said, oh, you mean she's exercising her leadership skills?
Yeah, like, there you go.
Don't put that label on my kid.
That's right. That's one of the things too. And I think subconsciously, I mean, again, I hadn't really thought about this until I started talking about this on podcasts and things like that. But, when my daughter was growing up, I wanted her to step into those, really being a leader and putting herself out there. I mean, she was in pageants. I can remember her first pageant. She did not fit the mold at all, but she had really stepped into that. And then when she went to college, she went to school for sports broadcasting. Cool. She never did that. She never went into that at all, but she's always been in leadership roles. And I think that somewhere I did instill that in her in a way, because that had been pushed down on me, and maybe even a little bit with my family when I think about it, because I had two older brothers. I was an annoying sister. So it probably was also kind of pushed down. My mom my dad was more the go-getter, and my mom was more the nurturer kind of person. So she probably in some ways, pushed that down too in me. So yeah, it's interesting how all those things come back up, and they do end up being your thing.
Exactly. It's like they're all double-edged swords. It's like, just use it for good.
Well, there's a time and a place for everything, right?
Right.
Yeah, getting in trouble in the third grade. I probably did talk too much, and so there's a time and a place for everything. But those are great questions. This has been the most fun podcast because I have not been asked any of those questions before.
Thank you.
And I've been on hundreds of podcasts. It's crazy. Good.
Well, we are wrapping up. And leave us with a piece of advice that our listeners can do today to make their lives and businesses stronger and better.
I would say step into everything that you can step into. I see so many people, Lauren, are complacent. They settle. They just want an income. I believe if we've been called to entrepreneurship, we've been called to bigger things. We've been called to wealth. We've been called to change the world. We've been called to change lives. And I want to encourage everyone to step into that fully and not play small.
I love that. Here. I agree. Where can people find you?
Yes, you can go to my website at annlcarden.com, or you can find me anywhere on social. So
okay. We'll put it all in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a future episode? Head over to the impatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.